Okay, you guys, I'm preparing to start the YouTube. And so it's really good if everybody turns off their camera and except Bruce, and he can say hello. Now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 16th, 2024 meeting of the Washington County Committee for Community Involvement. My name is Bruce Bartlett, and I have the lucky honor of chairing this august organization. Mary Manso is our very capable vice president. And tonight we have a special visitor coming to share her thoughts with us. I'm not seeing her on the screen. We do have Deputy County Administrator Danny Ledesma online. And so, oh, Catherine, there we go. Very good. Catherine, I'd just like to welcome you and thank you very much for making the time to visit with us. And we sent you a set of questions, and as long as that set of questions might be, we still have more, but we'll save those for a subsequent visit. And so we're all very interested in what you have to say, your own thoughts, and how you would respond to those questions. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Yep. Yep, that old trick.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yay. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. As you know, my civic involvement here in Washington County began with the CPO and CCI program. I lived in PO7 for a very long time. And in 2004, I became an active member of CPO7 and then joined the CCI and have been engaged as an elected official with the CPO and CCI program for the 12 years that I was a Metro Councilor, and now during my tenure here as the elected Washington County Chair. I did receive the questions, and I believe that Danny Ledesma, oh, there she is, I see her. She is the one of our great assistant county administrators in Washington County. So I supplied the questions to Danny and other team members as well, because there are some questions that you're asking about where I don't have the latest and greatest information. So it'll come later. So to start off, one of the items that you asked me about was our unique county governance, and what I see as the top 3 priorities for Washington County in the what you call the coming biennium, but this year and into next year and the end of June of 2026. Yes. So for me personally, as one member of 5 on the Washington County Board of Commissioners, continuing to do work on affordable housing and addressing homelessness here in Washington County is something that has been near and dear to me for years now, both as a Metro Councilor and as your County Commission Chair. And I'm going to continue to be very involved there. We have a terrific housing team at Washington County working across the spectrum, not only with the portfolio that the Housing Authority of Washington County owns and rehabilitates to extend the life of that portfolio, but also working with the development market to finish the construction of projects through the Metro Affordable Housing Bond Program. Thank you, voters. As well as our team working with community-based organizations all across our region to help us address the critical needs of homelessness here in Washington County. As you're familiar with, the supportive housing services measure directed us to end chronic homelessness, those folks who have had multiple episodes of homelessness and may have debilitating disabled conditions, as well as to make sure that we're not increasing homelessness across Washington County and our region. The second area that's really near and dear to me is public safety and justice. And I certainly didn't run on addressing major needs of public safety and justice, but this is where we find ourselves. The prior board was not properly informed and kept in pace with the needs of our adults in custody, both for the jail as well as the community corrections center. So now we're behind the curve and we need to get working on an expanded jail. As you may know, we have the second smallest jail in Oregon, and we are the second most populous county in Oregon. Kind of interesting, we're at each end of the spectrum. We are also continuing to push at the state level for state local match for us to start planning a new courthouse. The state legislature has told us that we're not going to be getting more judges to deal with the backlog of cases that we have, as well as the number of cases that our current district attorney chooses to prosecute, unless we produce more courtrooms. And we can't do that without a new courthouse. Additionally, we have a great community corrections team. We have a supervision center as well as a great staff with parole and probation for supervision services. But the state has not kept pace with the costs needed to fund that. So we've got to work on that. The third priority for me is, the completion of new foundation building here at Washington County. When I first ran for chair through 2016 and 17, I ran on modernizing Washington County, but little did I know that there were so many assets here at Washington County that had been truly ignored or left to age with no plan to replace legacy systems. For example, we are completing our first ever comprehensive capital improvement plan. We have 3 of our departments that have developed our initial one, but we still have some additional work to go across the agency so that it's comprehensive. A new ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, that is the larger computer system that handles all of our HR records, all of our contracts, all of our procurement, and works across the organization. Our current solutions don't talk to one another, and they're so old, the vendors don't support them anymore. So we're investing over $19 million on a new system. HR transformation, we're having difficulty retaining people and attracting new ones because our classification and compensation system needs to be updated. Our budget system needs to continue with full transformation, including being developed and implemented following best practices for government finance. County budget stabilization. You've heard here over the last few years that we have had costs that have grown higher than the tax limitations through our statewide tax program here as adopted in 1990 by the voters with Measure 5, then 47 and 50. So that means that we've had some shortfalls that our county administrator has had to problem solve through the proposed budget, and that we've had to further implement through our required balanced budgeting. It was 35 million a couple of years ago, 25 million last year, and we've got about a $10 million problem that she's solving. Our proposed budget will be published on Monday, April 29th, so in a couple of weeks. So we'll all learn more about how Ms. Tanya Angie, our great county administrator, has done that problem solving. Lastly, another foundation building piece is to stabilize the state mandates that the state legislature is requiring of us, and to do some additional work on countywide government service addressing the needs of our community. So that's it for me personally. Now, if I just step back and speak to the board comprehensively, there are resources that you can look at publicly to see more about the detail that's on our plate. With the April 4th roundtable, you can see that we have a new planning tool called the BCC, Board of County Commissioners Work Plan. But that brings forward a few things: our public safety and justice paper and the challenges and continuing to work those with the jail, community correction center, juvenile justice, district attorney, and with the courts. You also know that we have a really important public safety levy here in Washington County. Washington County is known for being a safe community. We all cherish that about the community that we live in, and we're going to have to do work to go back to the voters for a replacement or renewal of that levy in 2025. Same thing with the Washington County Consolidated Community Library System, WCCLS, that provides services and digital content across our entire network of public libraries here, whether they're run by cities or nonprofit groups. So we'll have to work on that. And we all know that we're due to have a newly elected Board of Commissioners sworn in and ready to start in January of next year. So that's just to name a few of the top things that are on our common Board of Commissioners plate coming up in 2025. Did I answer your question A-okay there, Bruce?
I would say yes. Those are candid and useful things. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to keep going through your questions?
That would be lovely.
Okay.
Please devote as much time as you have.
Does the whole group have all these questions?
Yes, they were published with the agenda.
Okay, terrific. Your next question or topic area was, we would like to know your vision for how Washington County can best ensure the long-term viability of the urban unincorporated area containing over 200,000 highly diverse people. Well, you and I each know that the long-term viability of such unincorporated neighborhoods is dependent upon being part of incorporated cities. Now, why do I say that? It's because we are a county government. We only get county-wide resources, and we don't have the resources to meet all the community need just for those county-wide resources. So we have very specialized resource flows for the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol and the Urban Road Maintenance District, but we have a lot of people asking us for more neighborhood scale, city-type municipal services. And we as your county government just are not going to be able to deliver on those. So that's that long-term viability. Do I think that's going to change across all of urban unincorporated within some recent time frame? Heavens no. So if I set your heart aflutter, my apologies. Didn't mean to do that, but rather you've heard from me for decades, right? Including as a Metro counselor saying cities are the urban services provider. They have resources that we don't have in order to deal with and provide those common city services. So I know that's a really hard message for a lot of folks, but it's just our reality as county commissioners. It's a risk. And I used to live in the Bethany area for 15 years as well. So I have a flavor for what it's like to live in an urban unincorporated area. But, you know, the experience varies across the county. So you do have some sub-questions below that, such as, is the UUA population growing or shrinking as development occurs with the recent UGB, urban growth boundary expansions, and annexation into Beaverton, Hillsborough, King City, Tigard, and the rest? Well, I think you've pretty much, in calling out those 4 cities, have really hit the nail on the head in terms of where those recent UGB expansions have happened. And certainly the metro policy that changed years ago, such that those UGB expansion areas are governed and planned by the cities. But there are, as you rightfully note, that there are some smaller urban unincorporated areas and developments or areas that are over time going to go through either new development because they're just totally empty lots, or through redevelopment. Now, all of the UGB expansions from 2014 forward have been in incorporated cities. So the capacity that we have at the county for handling the development, planning, and applications is somewhat limited, which sometimes gets us in knots with the development community because they want us to be as speedy as cities. We're doing the best we can. We have a great team, but it can be challenging. Excuse me. I have not seen that those UGB expansions have had any effect on population growth or decline of UUA areas. I just haven't seen any data. So I have no reason to believe that the UUA population isn't increasing. I mean, we have the 2020 census information that we used as part of the 2022 reapportionment. You then ask, how does the county track the intergovernmental agreements with cities and service districts to ensure coordination? So we have updated planning agreements with most of the cities. They get updated over the course of time, particularly as there are these big new UGB areas. So it's very clear that the cities handle the concept planning. The county technical team works with the cities on the concept planning, and then the cities continue from there with the comprehensive planning. And once again, there's technical planning done there. But we, the county, are also responsible for some county plans, such as the transportation planning. And those plans are worked on with cities, such as we did with the transportation plan and the adoption of early plans by the city of Tigard for River Terrace. But when you have a change of elected officials in cities, they sometimes are not aware of all of those agreements. And so it can take some time to work through the ins and outs of all of those. So, another question, do you feel the current policies are sufficient, or should the board direct action to encourage UUA annexation to their relevant city or incorporation perhaps? What options could be considered to encourage annexation, property tax breaks perhaps? Well, this is an area for exploration, certainly. Property tax breaks from the county, I just can't see that happening because of all the points I spoke to earlier about needing every single dollar to provide countywide services. But, there is the possibility of property tax breaks by the cities or waiving SDCs or other fees, but those are decisions by those respective cities. As you know, there are two very specific UUA property taxes, the Urban Road Maintenance District, and then that's for upkeep of the UUA neighborhood streets. And then there's the Enhanced Sheriff Patrol, Law Enforcement Patrol to increase patrol in the UUA neighborhood areas to be more in line with the ratio that cities tend to maintain. So if any of those homes in those districts annex to any of the cities, those two property taxes are no longer imposed on those properties, and then their city taxes go towards providing the street maintenance, the police patrol, and many other services we don't provide. And I remember when I moved to the city of Beaverton, my property tax bill, I took that and I normalized it compared to the property tax bill that I had in Bethany. And there was this experience of the special districts coming off. And for me, THPRD was normalized as well. So my property taxes they increased by about $400, but not nearly as much as some people were circulating in different circles. And I feel that becoming a Beaverton resident, I got an awful lot of services for that. So, but that's just my one experience. And it was my choice to move to the city of Beaverton. So the last question you have under this section is, additional employment causes more traffic impacts and housing issues in Washington County. With their new federal grants, what can Intel be expected to contribute to help ameliorate these impacts? Well, I don't believe that the federal CHIPS Act nor the state legislation to support those CHIPS Act investments require any such things whatsoever. And as far as I've read in the press, Intel plans are entirely within the city of Hillsborough. So I haven't heard anything more specifically about Intel plans than what I've read in the press, probably just like you. So before we move to public participation, I'm wondering if maybe we should skip down to I want to bring public participation back to have Danny help address because she'll have more information. So Bruce, I'm wondering about dropping down to the air quality questions that you have. Is that
Sure.
okay?
I think that's a good move. Thank you.
And by the way, I've not kept time, so I don't know how I'm doing. If I'm going too fast.
You're doing great. This is
Okay.
a good pace and good information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. So you asked me a question about how is residential trash burning regulated within the urban growth boundary? And frankly, I don't know. I think that would be a really good question to have submitted through constituent communication. I know that cities handle it in their jurisdictions. And I've certainly seen burn bans for the rural areas, but honestly, I don't know. So why not have somebody submit that into our constituent communication, and we'll all learn together. So, your other question on air quality is, what role does the county play in considering Intel's request for increased releasing of air pollutants? Well, guess what? I have two different things to say about this. First of all, our county role, none. It's entirely a state DEQ responsibility. And on top of that, I just was notified by Nina DiConcini of the state DEQ today that they have just approved the latest application that Intel filed for their expansion plans. In addition, in I think that same communication, we received notification that Intel found an error in their prior carbon greenhouse gas emissions. And so they proactively reported that. Though that report had been verified through a third party. So DEQ has asked Intel to submit their new findings through a different third party. And they've also noted that Intel made this mistake as well. So you have some sub-questions under here. Does any part of HHS, Health and Human Services, track corporate compliance to air quality standards? No, air quality here in Oregon is handled entirely by DEQ. Could Intel's recent federal grants be required to go in part towards funding a more robust testing and filtration system to help blunt the increased pollution? The answer there is it's all up to state DEQ. And the federal government grants were awarded per the federal rules, and so that's totally outside our purview as well. So that's the best answer I have to that question. So
Well, I would say that clears the air on that subject. And thank you. I know that a lot of people are concerned about the air quality issue. And so we'll see what we can do to get DEQ to weigh in on it a little bit from our mighty position of influence. Okay, so please continue.
Yeah, so you also asked a couple of questions about public participation. So your first overview is, in the post-pandemic world, CPO leaders have noticed that volunteers seem to be diminished in both availability and quantity. Has the county noticed this decrease in volunteerism? We would like to know what the county is doing to encourage more active volunteers. I think, frankly, this is information that our administration will need to answer, and possibly parts of the next two as well. So Danny Ledesma, the Assistant County Administrator, who also has community engagement as part of her portfolio, is here to join us tonight to see how we can address your questions.
And I would like to welcome you, Danny, to this meeting, and I appreciate you taking the time to respond to these questions. And so take it away.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Chair Harrington. I just really appreciate the opportunity to come to these meetings, and I can't tell you how thrilling it is to be able to be staff, to be able to sort of see the interaction between our chair, our elected leader, and with community volunteers, to be able to have these like conversations. And it's really thrilling, and I really admire how well the chair knows the county, and not just through like lived experience, but just has like like a PhD level sort of knowledge of such a wide range of issues. I feel like I learn something every time I hear these answers, and I really appreciate the questions. And so I just as someone who's still fairly new to the county, I just really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Bruce, and thank you to the group for the questions and for the opportunity to answer these. So when we're talking about volunteerism, I hope everyone knows what a big fan I am of volunteerism, and I think that what we know about volunteerism in Washington County is that within departments, that volunteerism continues to be very strong, particularly and even during post-pandemic years. However, the county has not taken a specific count of the various volunteers serving the organization, so we don't have necessarily a direct answer. But what we can say, and I hope that you both understand and experience this, is that now more than ever, Washington County appreciates the ongoing contributions of our many volunteers. We recognize not only the effort and the time that it takes to pull together CPO meetings, but also your experience and your expertise and your willingness to bring important topics and perspectives forward for the benefit of the larger community and for the administration. We hope that you are able to celebrate your hard work and achievements at the county's annual volunteer appreciation event that's being held next Thursday, April 25th. So I think we're really excited about that. We even heard a little bit about that at our BCC meeting today. So the sub question
And
underneath.
before you move on, that is next Thursday at 5:30 at the Wingspan Center, the old fairgrounds. And so
Yes.
I'm hoping that that most of the people here will show up and accept the gratitude that the county has to offer us. So
Thank you, Bruce, for those additional details. The next question was about information about re-envisioning the CPO program is still listed on the county website. Although we've been told that re-envisioning is no longer active, what can you tell us about the plans for the CPO program? And as CPO members, we have a strong desire to participate in designs to enhance the system. So there are no current plans to change the CPO program at this time. We are continuing to review Resolution and Order 8658 to identify areas where the resolution's language may need to be modernized and aligned with the county's current community engagement operations. Any proposed changes to the resolution or program as a whole will absolutely be shared with participants in the program and the public in general through a very transparent process. And I think that, my experience has been, I think that your experience likely has been that our chair has really established transparent processes, has reiterated to staff that, wants that the expectation is that changes should be, there should be public discourse and public opportunities to talk about those changes. And so you should continue to expect that. The next question is, since county-sponsored civic leaders training is currently available only to BIPOC people, new CPO leaders who are not in that demographic are struggling to effectively engage their roles. When can we expect a more inclusive approach to leadership training? Oh, sorry, Chair Harrington, I see your hands up.
I was going to point that out. Okay. Did clarifying questions or statements?
No, I just wanted to let me pose a question for you now, but we'll come back to it after Danny's taken us through this whole section. But I would be interested in hearing if the CPO group has any interest in adjusting CPO boundaries to perhaps be in line with our most recent county commissioner districts. That is one element of CPO revisioning that we thought early on we might do. So let me just put that question in your brain, and after Danny's taken us through this whole section, maybe we can have a bit of a conversation about that to see if you have any interest.
Great. Thank you, Chair Harrington.
Yeah,
That's great, great clarification. So the next question was about the civic leaders training. And so my understanding is that, anyone can apply to participate in the civic leadership trainings, but really the content of those trainings is tailored to people who may not be familiar with how to engage with county decision makers, or they may face either language or cultural barriers to accessing county governance processes. So for these reasons, the program is designed with people in mind who may have been historically underserved by these processes, such as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, I think is what folks said. I understand that there are new CPO leaders and newly activated CPOs that might benefit from a CPO leader specific training. And while the county has not conducted the annual CPO leader training in a few years due to staff capacity and the pandemic, I believe community engagement staff are ready and willing to revive that conversation and start to host an annual CPO leader training this fall. So ICA will reach out to you about a good time to discuss this further, to be able to sort of to revive that. Okay, so the next question.
That's good news. I appreciate the sentiments there. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think staff we're in this good space now, and so I think people are really excited about being able to offer that again. So the last question in this section is Latine communities in Oregon and Washington County have increased in numbers and as a percentage of population. How do county departments reach out to these communities and other immigrant communities to engage them? What challenges and opportunities has this created? And I think there was some early conversation with the chair, and the chair sort of stressed that, community engagement through the Office of Equity and Community Engagement have provided community engagement best practice guides and services for our county departments to utilize in department programs. And our departments really look for opportunities to collaborate. So for example, in the summer of 2021 and 2022, the Middle Housing and the MISTIT programs did a joint outreach program in community and with a very specific equity focus and equity focus groups. We anticipate that the equity focus groups will continue as they tend to be more welcoming for our populations who have been historically underrepresented that contain our community members. Some other examples is that there's a lot of additional examples of collaboration within Latine communities across the county. So in addition to LUT, other departments that have had a long history of partnership to serve the Latine communities include Health and Human Services, Housing, Juvenile Services, Library Services, and the Sheriff's Office. And internally, the county organization has also worked to improve our human resources processes to meet the needs of the county's staff, growing diversity in existing and both in existing employees and prospective employees. And then, of course, we can't forget that the board created the Advisory Council on Racial Equity in 2021 to ensure that diverse perspectives are also included in the decision-making process. And I think it's fun because I think that Bruce, I know Bruce is a regular attender. And so, when there's public comment, it's never crickets because I know that Bruce will have a great comment. So I think those are the questions for public participation. Maybe I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Yes, thank you, Danny. I really appreciate hearing the updates from community engagement. And as Danny said, she hasn't been with the county that long. She joined last October. And in addition to getting to know her portfolio, which has multiple different departments, she also spearheaded our strategic plan update, picking that project up from Rachel Fuller, a prior county administrator whose contract came to an end. She wanted to get back to living and working full-time in Hood River. So Danny took that project over, and our Board of Commissioners packet was just published today for next Tuesday's meeting. And please take a look. We have the final draft ready to be adopted. You might remember that we had a public comment period earlier this year. Danny brought the results of that to us. We asked that they include a little bit more information here and there, which they did. And we wanted to make sure that we brought that back to you in an evening meeting. So our clerk Moss made sure to get that packet out and published today as quick as possible. Danny has included a presentation as well. So all the goods are right in that packet. So please take a look and feel free to share your comment with us either by email or through testimony. We always welcome your comments. So Bruce, I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You're doing great. We have 5 or 10 minutes or so left, potentially. And I see that Mary has a question. Are you ready to take questions?
Yes.
Hey, Mary, take it away.
So I'd like to respond to your question about whether the CPO boundary should be altered to adjust to the commissioner districts.
It's just an idea.
Okay. And my thought on that is the CPO boundaries are based upon the community plans. And I believe the commissioners can be a whole lot more flexible than the community plans. And if we change the CPO boundaries, it really screws up the community plans. Although I'd be really happy to see updates in the community plans.
Yay!
So,
well, thank you very much for that important reminder, Mary. I really appreciate that stark reminder. Absolutely.
Is that, oh, you're done, Mary? Okay. Virginia, what do you got? Once you're off mute.
Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, these buttons aren't working. There we go. Eek. Hi. So one of my questions didn't seem to make the cut, but one of my biggest concerns is to keep Washington County as a sustainable place. I think Washington County has the chance with global climate change and all of the things that our next generation is facing to be one of the last livable places on the planet. And I'd like to know how you can leverage development to achieve that. Easy question.
Well, Virginia, you may be happy to know that today, with the adoption of a Earth Day proclamation, we had the opportunity to meet one of our newest members of our sustainability team, a gentleman, J.T. Douglas. I believe his full first name is James, but he goes by J.T. And he and another colleague from sustainability are working with the public health team. As you probably know, we're taking a public health approach to looking at climate change and climate adaptation. So I know we have had a plan to do a greenhouse gas inventory, and then the staff was going to be coming back with the results of that. But what I'm really trying to get at is JT spoke today about how they're putting together a program dedicated website, web page, excuse me, as well, I think, as an interested parties list as well. So as soon as that kicks off, you know that not only will our team be highlighting that in information resources for the CCI and CPO, but I will also post information about that on my chair Facebook page.
May I have a brief follow-up? We really want land use, we're land use geeks, right? That's why we're here. And we really want to see land use used as leverage for more sustainable development, for more different types of housing. We think middle housing is a great idea. Good heavens, where did those balloons come from? We think that middle housing is a good idea, but there's way more that can be done. Developers are breaking down our non-existent doors to develop here, and we think that by having the county have a land use focus on sustainability, that we can do a better job for the next generation. That's not just health and human services, but land use, LUT. I'm done.
Thank you. Fran, what do you got?
Aloha,
Aloha.
Chair Harrington. Yes, I just returned from Hawaii, as everybody knows, but I've been quietly working behind the scenes for years now, especially on the conflict we've had with transportation and environmental sustainability, et cetera. And we've been at a 35-year stalemate with a number of different organizations. So I have been working with various decision makers and planners to try to put together a charrette to see if we can break through this stalemate. City planners and everything, just so you're aware that what I'm trying to do behind the scenes here. My big concern is in pulling together all of this mappings and data and stuff, which is very much an eye-opener for a number of these people. We see that this UGB expansion is headed for the 100-year floodplain and the Tualatin River tributaries.
And that would be the South County.
Southwest, yes, Southwest Washington County specifically. Yes. So I just wanted to make you aware of what we're doing, but we all can see what happens when we aren't all on the same page in terms of what we need to do. And I'm trying to stop the can't. We can't do this, we can't do that, but rather what can we do? So if you want to participate, or if you want to assign someone to it, please let me know, and we will be pulling together this. I have a Metro councilor and others who are pulling this thing together. We can't just keep doing this. And the key point, this is where what this all leads to, is we're putting together the strategic plan for the administration of the county, but I don't see in the comprehensive plan specific quantitative targets of how much agriculture are we going to protect, how much significant natural resource are we going to protect, so that we can be clear and objective about farmland, about the SNR, and then the urbanization. Are we headed for a totally urbanized county, or do we want to be a hybrid? And I don't expect you to have a specific answer yet, but this is, I'm having a hard time with the administrative strategic direction when we don't really know how much we want to put, how much energy we want to put in each of these different areas. And thank you again for considering this really tough topic.
Well, I want to share something on one aspect that Fran just covered, and that is on the protection of farmlands. So I think everyone here participating in the CCI is very well versed in the presence of rural reserves here in Washington County. That was a very arduous program that was put in place because 80% of the urban growth boundary back in 2010 was a bordering foundation farmland. So those rural reserves stand. Only the state legislature can undo those 50-year designations. and Metro is required to consider any UGB expansion within the urban reserves. Unfortunately, the state legislature changed one of the terms. So after 75% of the urban reserves just in Washington County are utilized, then things can be revisited, specifically with the undesignated areas in Washington County. But take heart, our LUT group has been tracking that utilization, and we're well below the I think it's less than 42% thus far. I think it's more like in the 30s. I can't remember the exact number, but Aaron Wardell has supplied those numbers to us in board meetings over the last few months as the River Terrace expansion was finalized through Metro's UGB swap. So, and just today we had in our work session a great update on the Significant Natural Resources Program. And I want to thank all of you and members of your CPOs who participated in the spring outreach for the SNR ordinance development. It was a great turnout, and I thank all of you who participated. Hopefully those 4,000 letters and then postcards helped ensure that more people are aware of the work. But I'm really, really pleased by your active participation there. Thank you very much.
Gretchen, what do you have?
Hello, Gretchen.
Good evening, Chair. Oh, you can't see me. That's okay. Yeah, my question is back to boundaries for CPOs. When we were a small county, which I remember having grown up on 7 acres, CPOs made sense, the boundaries. Now we have some that have 10,000 people, some that have close to 100,000 people. And quite frankly, it's really discouraging for someone who lives in one of those huge CPOs to feel like it makes sense for them to try to participate when it's so big. And the question has been asked more than once over the last 20 years, when are we going to reevaluate the current CPO boundary system? I really think we need to have more CPOs with smaller populations so that people can feel more invited, that they really do have a voice. And I'm lucky I sit in a smaller one. So yeah, I'm passing that on.
Thank you very much for raising population as a potential factor. I think that and the community plans are two early factors for us to potentially consider. But keep your thinking caps on.
And then Linda, what do you have? And this will be our last question for time's sake.
Hi, Linda, are you still there? Can you unmute?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Excellent.
All right, thank you. My question has to do with a particular issue that CPO8 deals with, and I'm sure other CPOs deal with as well from time to time. But currently, I would like to know how are CPOs meant to address the issue if cities within a CPO boundary refuse to work with their members?
Could you expand that question? So the question was, how do CPOs work with cities who won't?
Well, let's say that as a CPO tries to engage a city within its boundary, and the city simply refuses.
So you're right, Linda, that there is nothing that compels city administrations to work within the county CPO structure. You know, the fundamental purpose of CPOs is to satisfy the state requirements, particularly for land use development as part of the original land use program. As noted earlier, our resolution and order around community engagement in its entirety, CPOs are just one element of that, is very old, 1986. Good heavens, I was still in my early adulting. So, you know, you can make the invitations, and from time to time, you may find that there are subjects that they wish to engage on, but cities are allowed to use their own style of community engagement, and it varies from city to city. So the CPO programs were never set up or meant to address the city community engagement, nor are cities required.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that brings us to a fairly soft landing here. I really want to thank you. Virginia, you got another one?
Oh, just a quickie. Just a quickie. I was wondering if the county has considered distributed courthouses so that they're, instead of trashing our beautiful historical building, that we have something down in Forest Grove and something maybe up here in Northeast County and something down towards the bottom south. Just a thought. As we're so short of money, I'm wondering if we could maybe act like a family with a limited budget.
Thank you, Virginia. That's a good suggestion, and I'm sure the chair is marking it down for suggesting to the powers that be.
So, Bruce, I do hope that I have satisfied
Yes.
some of the interests of the CCI. Please do let me know how I did in addressing your information needs because I'm a continuous learner. And, you know, I'm a what you see is what you get kind of frank person. I don't try to dodge questions. I try to answer them to the best of my ability. So I do very much appreciate all of your volunteerism, not only what you do with the CPOs and CCI. I know several of you are involved in other county programs and volunteering with other organizations as well. And I thank you for that. And thank you for making Washington County your home. And thanks for the invitation. I always appreciate getting them at least annually. So,
well, we'll look forward to extending another invitation to you relatively soon.
it's up to you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, everybody take a deep breath. Okay, now we have and since we had the North Plains Mayor Terry Lenahan come in and talk about the city, and she touched on the UGB plans. We've invited Aaron Nichols to come and talk a little bit about what smart growth for North Plains and the county might look like. So, Aaron, you're welcome to have 10 minutes to kind of discuss what the vision is. So, welcome.
Thank you, Bruce. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. Yeah, my name is Aaron Nichols. I'm here tonight with Friends of North Plains Smart Growth, organization that helped bring the ballot measure and is advocating for a no vote on Measure 34, 327 which would send the planning process back to the city for its urban growth boundary expansion. I'm also a farmer. I farm right outside of North Plains. I do a CSA farm. I have 500 CSA members and really enjoy my farming. And I'm a board member on Farmland First, which is a organization that protects farmland in Washington County.
I have a question.
And I'm, oh, please.
Is your
Yeah.
farm directly affected by the annexation, or are you outside of the zone of annexation?
It's not an annexation, it's an urban growth boundary expansion.
I'm sorry,
but,
yes, the urban UGB expansion.
Yeah, no worries. My farm is outside I would not be included in the urban growth boundary expansion. I farm one farm outside of North Plains, but I would not be included in it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, no problem. So what I want to talk about, I'll give you a little bit about North Plains and our vision for North Plains, because that's what I said we were coming. But something I'd like to talk about, and particularly because you all, the CCI, were very kind in helping us when we were at the state legislature arguing against House Bill 4026. You all wrote a letter advocating for citizen participation in planning processes, and also for good citizen participation. Not backroom deals, but instead open and apparent processes. And so thank you for writing that. And I want to kind of come back to goal one and how cities should or could handle goal one in a way that would prevent later issues for them. So in North Plains, what we're looking for, my group is looking for, and I'll say today, I'm not advocating today. I know that likely none of you can vote in the upcoming election, but I do want to give you just the background and what our side is. And what we're looking for is a planning process that involves people who'll be based on whether or not they'll be affected by the urban growth boundary expansion. The city is very, and the mayor was, when she spoke too, very clear that they feel people who are outside the city are not welcome to be involved in the process. As a farmer right outside the city, I find that frustrating. And I think it's also not the way that a good process goes forward. For farmers, of course, if the city grows and splits, this expansion would split the east and west side of North Plains farming apart from each other, and that would deny access to a lot of the infrastructure, mostly on the west side, to us, those of us on the east side, tractor dealerships, grain, seed cleaners, grain storage, and just our neighbors. So that's a reason that I'm involved in this, and a reason I think that good planning involves more than just the people who can vote on it. I don't think that this election should be based on one's power to elect a city council member, but rather how one will be affected for the rest of their lives by this urban growth boundary expansion. We also want a plan that's based primarily on facts. We feel that the current plan was put forward by the city using the correct documents, an EO or employment opportunities analysis and a housing needs analysis, but used in a way that is excessive. So the city went through 3 EOAs until they got one that they felt gave them enough acreage, and they tweaked their assumptions. So eventually they had to go up to 5.1, expecting 5.1% growth every year for 20 years to be able to get the EOA that they have now, and that is not likely growth. I mean, no city in Oregon grows like that. But it is a legal way to do your EOA. They also used a target industries analysis where you get to guess what industry you want to come to your city and then build for that. That is since being redone by the LCDC, because they feel that the way North Plains used it, and some other cities have used it, is not serving good planning. And so we think that this should be based on real growth that is based on what sorry, I have children in the background, and my apologies. Based on what they actually will grow to, and rather than what they wish they might want to grow to in one day. And then so including people in the process based on fact. And then we want a planning process that does what many planning processes do, and have some sort of order of magnitude analysis or something similar upfront, so people can look at costs. They can look at what kind of roads would be put in. They can look at those very basics. North Plains did not do that. They are not required to do that for their process because they're a small city. But the the process they're going through is meant for small cities to expand in small ways, not for small cities to expand in gigantic ways. So if it's going to be a really large expansion, we need to treat it like a large expansion and understand what's coming. So that's what I have on North Plains. Well, that's not all I have on North Plains. I'm happy to talk about that as much as you'd like. But what I kind of want to talk about more is how I think cities can work with CPOs, or at least with the folks around them, to do urban growth boundary expansions. I think urban growth boundary expansions are kind of special. They're not the same as most planning processes we go through, because they're just so big and they're so critical, and they determine people's lives for a long time, and they touch on much bigger issues such as climate change, how much the county is urbanizing, how we keep communities together that maybe aren't in the cities, and so looking at those sorts of things, I think, are really critical to the future of how cities, especially rural cities, are growing. And I think the principles that I stated earlier about North Plains are ones that are useful and ones that make sense. Inclusive planning that intentionally includes people inside and outside the city. Planning that looks into the real costs and the real issues involved, and looks far into the future. I think are what I would like to see from every city that's going through urban growth boundary expansions. And of course, those are expensive, and of course, those do take a long time. But that served us well in Oregon. The urban growth boundary system has served us well, and I think there's a lot of pressure, both on the city level in cities such as North Plains and others, and also, unfortunately, at the legislature, to move away from a more inclusive planning. And on the statewide level, I'll just give the example that 50 years ago, for Senate Bill 100, that bill was brought out to every county in small work groups where people sat and talked about it and gave ideas. And the first goal they came up with was citizen involvement, as you all know very well. This year at the legislature, their bill 4026, which, again, thank you for testifying against that as a group. This was brought in about 2 weeks before the end of the legislative session. It shut everyone out of the process, except those who had enough money for lobbyists. And it would have determined the urban growth boundary expansion by taking an already qualified ballot that the citizens of North Plains had asked to vote, an already qualified referendum off the ballot, one that the citizens of North Plains had asked to vote on already. Had it been a legal thing to do, that's what would have happened. It has since been hit with a restraining order from a judge, and I imagine will be thrown out as unconstitutional after the election. But that it's a big difference. That's rather than going out and seeing what people wanted, the legislature assumed they knew what was best and did it without even, I mean, there was no discussion with anyone in my group from anyone in the legislature who spoke, the only organized opposition. And so I think it is kind of time for us as citizens who want to be involved to be involved, and to be involved in a rather forceful way, more so than maybe we've had to be in the past, especially when it comes to things like urban growth boundary expansion, climate change, and protecting the rural and farming portions of our county. I'm going to stop there, I think, because I would love to have some questions if I have time. If I don't, that's fine too.
All right. Well, thank you for those thoughts, Aaron. I appreciate hearing what you have to say. Does anybody have a question that they would like to pose on this subject? So looking around, check the panelists. Gretchen, what do you have?
Yeah. I'm a retired real estate and land use lawyer. I'll give you that intro. And I've been involved with local city government off and on for 40 some years. We won't talk about how many more. But the legislature many, many moons ago set up an administrative law process for land use issues, that everything was to go through LUBA and then on to the Court of Appeals. I feel that there's tons of history in this. And so my question is, why don't you trust an administrative process? Why do you feel it has to be fixed? It's broken.
Sure. So let me make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. I think what you're saying is that the UGB process is administrative in nature, and why we which would mean we couldn't take it to the ballot, I guess. And why don't I trust Luba to deal with this? And that is a very fair question. The reason we took this to a ballot to begin with was because our concern was that North Plains had the documents which we felt were misused. And honestly, I will also say that the DLCD thinks were misused. They have sent a letter to North Plains saying that they relied on inaccurate information to make their decisions. They've told North Plains, they've basically taken away the process North Plains used to get where they are. But North Plains got in there before that was taken away. And so we worry that the most that Luba would do was say, take away 50 acres or something, and it would still be the biggest expansion by percentage in Oregon history. So I don't believe that so as far as whether it's administrative or legislative, I mean, I don't think you or I have the answer to that. It is a complicated question. The judge who put the restraining order in said we were likely to prevail on the facts. So he believes it is likely legislative. So far, Washington County's lawyer said it was absolutely for sure legislative. There was no question whatsoever in his mind when he stopped the county process. But you are correct. It could end up being administrative in nature. There are aspects of both in this. And so as far I guess this is an extreme process. Like I said, it is the biggest expansion in Oregon history by percentage basis by a very big deal. It's also just the largest expansion outside of metro in the metro counties ever. So it's big in many ways. It was done with a process that I do not feel was in good faith. And so in that situation, I think the extreme and very difficult work of getting it on the ballot is the correct one. One that allows citizens direct democracy. And I will also say that, yes, 50 years ago, well, first I will say that we have talked to many people, John Platt, Ed Sullivan, who were involved in this process 50 years ago, and they understood that this could be taken to the ballot at the time. This was not unexpected by the framers of Senate Bill 100. And then I will also say that 50 years more than that before Senate Bill 100, there was a constitutional amendment that allowed legislative things to go to the ballot. And so if this is legislative, then it goes, that's a constitutional right. And no matter what the legislature says, whether it's administrative or not, the Constitution trumps that. And so that's where it'll end up going. I totally hear your question, and I agree it's a very extreme response, but it is an extreme response to an extreme issue. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, what do you have?
Nice to see you, Aaron. You're a
Great to see you, Jim.
farmer. You're a farmer. What do you grow, and what can you tell us about the soil quality in the proposed UGB area and why it should be protected?
Thank you. That is another way this is extreme, and thank you, Jim. I am a farmer. I grow vegetables. I have a CSA, so people pick up vegetables at my farm and at the farmers market. I grow for about 500 people. I have about 10 employees. And like I said, I really enjoy being a farmer. I feel lucky to have that job. I own about 30 acres. My brother farms some of it. I farm some of it. I grow crops on about 15. And on that, I feed 500 people. And I think that alone says something. I farmed in upstate New York for a while, and I think we farmed 40 acres. I don't remember how many exactly right now. It was a while ago. And we fed about 300 people. And it wasn't that we were worse. I mean, I was a worse farmer then, but the people who ran that farm were at least as good of farmers, if not better than I am. But the soil is just nowhere near as good. We grow for less work way more crops than most other places in the world. This area, northern Washington County, consistently wins the Wheat Bowl, which is the acre of land in the United States that grows the most wheat. Thank you, computers on combines, for telling us that. And so this is amazing land. It is almost all classified as unique soils. Dean Moberg, who wrote the book "The Soils of Western Washington" or Western Oregon, he has been out talking about how great these soils are. Jim Johnson, the agronomist at ODA, analyzed the soils when we asked him to. North Plains never had the soils analyzed and did not know what soils they were expanding onto. And he gave a very long explanation with lots of maps, which I'd be happy to share with you, since I imagine of all the people in the world, you are the group most likely to be interested in seeing those maps. But basically the top line of his response was, these are some of the best soils in Oregon and almost surely the world. They're irreplaceable soils. These are the soils that will feed us in a time of climate change. There's no doubt. But even more than these soils, I think, is the community that's around it and the infrastructure that's been built up. That is also quite irreplaceable. And if we lose the seed cleaners, if we lose the families who know how to farm in this area, we will be at a huge deficit, as we need to do more farming in this area.
Very good. So in the interest of time, I see that there is one person in the attendees who has a question, and I would request
For
that a fairly short question. Ayla Hoffler, take it away.
Hi, Ayla.
Ayla.
Mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can, yeah. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Aaron. I'm so sorry, as a first-rate farmer, you've had to learn all of the nightmares of administrative rules and legislation that affects you doing your job. And you've just been amazing. So thank you for doing the fight. I worked with Ed Sullivan in 1980, and I can tell you why administrative rules are insufficient, and even county practices. We had to hire Ed to fight the county from putting a dump on the top of Bacona, which is a watershed to the most pristine water in Northwest Washington County, Eastern Dairy Creek, Eastern Fork. So you cannot just trust the bodies that are the umbrella. The citizens must be a part of this, because we live here and we do need the sustainable livability of this county. So thank you again. What you're fighting is big. It should have had a referendum. We should be able to vote on it. And we have to change the notification of such magnitude changes to go a mile out, at least, from any kind of proposals like this. Because, you know, when you're driving tractors and log trucks, you are so affected by all these changes. And we have to have both. And we have to change the cartography of this county. We had such false evidence by the planners in North Plains showing us maps.
At this point, I think that we've exceeded our time limit, and Aaron made those comments pretty clearly in his testimony. So, would you like to have a concluding remark?
Yeah, I want to support Washington County redoing their cartography in the rural areas so that we can really understand what we own in terms of farming versus forestry, and who's living on it and who's not, and how we can do more balanced homesteads in and out of the county, urban areas and rural. So thank you.
Thank you. I attended soil school this last weekend, put on by the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District and the one in Multnomah County. And I learned that our soils are called mollisol soils, which are among the most productive on the planet. So that is certainly true. There is a website called Soil Web that will give you a mapping of all of the soil classifications. So we have some of that information. So thank you, Aaron, for coming and presenting your thoughts. And I look forward to having more conversations with you.
You're very welcome, Bruce. Thank you all. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Okay, now let's take another deep breath as I try to find the agenda. Once you get about 50 tabs open on your computer, it gets a little bit hard to find what you're looking for. And so there we go.
I suggest everybody pop in for this part of the meeting.
Pop in. What does that mean?
turn on your video.
Oh, okay. Ken, would you mind if I gave a little synopsis of the first quasi meeting of the Transportation Subcommittee?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. Um, so I didn't actually get the application to create the subcommittee out. So we'll save that for another time. But Gretchen and I met with Ken today, and we discussed many aspects, both historic and political, that led to a serious lack of arterial road system in South County. And so we're trying to figure out how the CCI can play a constructive role. And Fran certainly is playing a constructive role, part on her own and part with the CCI. And the steering committee tomorrow is going to kick this around a little bit. And since Metro's transportation element guides the county and cities, we're considering having a Metro presentation, and probably Diami Valentine from the county, who serves on the Transportation Project Advisory Committee for Metro, would be part of that. So that's the short version of the Transportation Subcommittee. Significant natural resources. Jill, Jim, I did go to the open house, since I have land that is affected by the evaluation of the SNR work, and I found that the open house was quite well done and very instructive. So, Jill, you got a little bit to add?
Yeah, it was basically, rehashing of what's going on, and we're just getting updates from, the mapping, and they're going to be finished in October. So
Okay.
that's my summary.
Okay, and if and this is a reminder to me too, that if you have any issues, the public comment on the SNR process is open, and so this is the time, Bruce, to get your comments in. Okay, Jim, what do you got?
Unmute, Jim.
Okay, we met this morning, and there were about 7 of us, and we discussed many things, including all the different wildlife that we've seen in the last month or so. And we talked about the county process, and particularly we talked about tree protection and how many other jurisdictions have some tree codes and the county doesn't. And, people are complaining about trees being cut both in unincorporated areas, but also in incorporated areas. And here during a climate change session or season, it's really important to take a look at protecting trees. We discussed a number of things. As Jill said, she and I went to the Goal 5 update process, and we found that the county was, I found a couple of things that the county had wrong. We can talk about that tomorrow in steering committee. But, we're glad to see something's happening. We just haven't seen any details yet. And we're looking forward to seeing some details on their clear and objective standards. And one thing we want to have a good model for the rest of the state. This is precedent setting here in Washington County, and we want to have a good model that can be used by other counties and jurisdictions. But there's 36 counties and 240 or so cities.
Yeah, and I think another issue we were talking about is the strife that we're having with the developers, and how challenging it is to, to communicate to developers about SNRs. So the county needs to coordinate with both the natural resources and the development community, and that's a real challenge. It's very that's a hard, tough row to hoe.
It is.
And one of the things we talked about was us coming up with our own clear and objective standards. So we know what we want here at the beginning, so we can compare them to what the county does.
Good plan. Good plan. Okay, Fran, what do you have?
I just want to remind everybody that I'm on the Technical Advisory Committee for the Goal 5 update. I really would appreciate any feedback from people. I can add my email in the chat just to remind people about the Goal 5. And I guess I might as well tell you all, I'm trying to work with the commissioners on it. Commissioners are unaware of this, but the Oregon Department of Forestry has offered a 3-year consulting urban forester for Washington County. So that's money on the table. I mean, no match is required. So I'm going to be meeting with the commissioners to see if I can get them to accept the offer. We talked to LUT first, and they are not equipped to make any kind of decisions without the commissioners accepting that kind of thing. But an urban forester would be a major step forward in that arena.
And who would be providing the funds for the urban forester?
So it's out of the IRA, ODF, Oregon Department of Forestry, and the
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a $22 million kitty that's being used in grant monies, and we're applying for part of it as tree keepers, which I'll talk about another time. But the key point that we've been pushing hard on is to get an urban forester to help with everything from the EAB to the tree code, all this kind of stuff, and be objective person that can help with that. And there's somebody they have in mind who's been working in Washington County, so he would be a really good candidate.
Wonderful. Jim.
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
I'd like to add a little brief thing here. For transparency's sake, I want to invite you all to Fran's committee. The Technical Advisory Committee is meeting on Friday from 1 to 3. So if you want to tune into that, you can listen to what they're talking about and see how they're dealing with the significant natural resources and coming up with clear and objective standards.
Very good. And that actually is a good segue into the next topic, which I think has caught a lot of CPO leaders by surprise, which is that county council, in treating CPO meetings as public meetings, disallows the use of chat with the attendees, which is, I have to admit, disappointing. But what we are going to do is have people put information into the chat, and then we'll capture that at the end of the meeting and post it on the CCI's Facebook page. And so if you don't like Facebook and you want information, hold your nose, go in, look at it. Anybody can see it, and then, hit the X and get out. But that's where the information will reside that was put into the chat. And so, Jim, if you could find the dates of and details on the on that meeting and put it in the chat, we'll be sure to capture it and put it on the Facebook page. Virginia, what do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say that perhaps we can capture that chat and post it on the YouTube page along with the meeting information.
Oh,
if
good
YouTube
idea.
is more amenable to folks. Do both.
Good. Okay. I'll give it to you to post it. Okay. So that covers that and that. Well,
Communications Committee?
Say what?
Communications Committee?
Could you say that slower? Don't. Take it away.
Thank you. Mary, well, we had a communications committee in March, and one of the things we decided to do was that Mary Manso and I would comb our way through the pages that pertain to us, the OEICE pages. And we went through dozens of pages and found hardly any pages that weren't either not updated up to date, or had errors or broken links or something where we would make suggestions on how to improve them. But unfortunately, we're not aware of any really good method, aside from just sending emails to people, any really good method for capturing all of these errors and non-updated pages. And so we haven't yet written up our report. Both Mary and I had taxes to deal with. Yeah. And so we decided not to call a communications subcommittee meeting in April. However, we will persist and have something a little more concrete in May, perhaps, if we have some idea that it all isn't just going, whistling in the wind, and that there's some place to put all this information. I'm done. Dead silence. Where's Bruce? He should probably unmute.
Oh, yeah, I probably should. If I'm going to talk, you should have the benefit of hearing my voice. Yes, and so I have confidence that that OEICE will respond to our many comments and suggestions on the website, as they have in the past. And so with that, I think that the chairs and Danny's, if we may be familiar, Danny's comments on the CPO program will stand for the CPR subcommittee's report. As you may recall, the CCI has put together a series of maps that look at all manner of pre-existing boundaries of different organizations in the county. And I think we can contribute some really useful perspectives before too long to the board. The chair was certainly reminded that our community plans are tied to the CPO boundaries, and so it's not a simple untethered process. So, Virginia, what do you got?
I was just going to round back up with comments about the cities and their failure to recognize the CPO system. We're really fortunate in CPO1 that Beaverton's charter, or whatever they call their collection of laws, does ask them to recognize the county land use participation people. And so Beaverton has been, ever since I pointed that out to them, which was many years ago, they have been wonderful about not only sending us all the right information, but recognizing us at their meetings. So I guess I would suggest to all the CPOs who have obstreperous counties that you work within their system to get them to pass something, as these things can happen, to be able to recognize the CPOs that operate in their boundaries. A big chunk of North Beaverton is part of CPO1, and we get all that stuff.
Well, they don't give it to us uninvited. We had to sign up to get it.
Not correct. Many years ago, back when the Peter Court development was happening, and that we, expressed an interest in it, I went and looked at the Beaverton charters, or whatever you call them. Like I say, I'm not quite sure. And it said that they would recognize the CPO, more or less to that effect. And ever since then, we didn't have to ask to get on any list. We get the stuff.
It's true that some development applications come to us without having to go ask.
You may not be getting everything I'm getting, but I'm the chair.
I am so glad that's true. Okay.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So that brings us up to the CPO Leaders Roundtable. So, Virginia, you are the Queen of Cedar Mill and the chair of CPO1. Do you want to say a few words?
No, I just took another bite of my dinner. Pick somebody else.
Okay. Well, I will say that CPO1 is involved in with a group called Adopt One Block, which is a community cleanup benevolent organization, and we turned in an application to have Cornell Road come under our stewardship. And on April 21st, we are having in conjunction with the Cedar Mill Community Club, we are having a cleanup of Cornell Road. So hopefully nobody will get run over in the process of doing that, and we'll get rid of a bunch of garbage. So we got CPO.
Well,
oh, there we go.
our April meeting was an election forum, and we had scheduled the people who are having all the ballot measures on our ballot. And then we had scheduled the sheriff, who is a candidate for re-election, or not re-election, election, because she was appointed. Basically, at the last minute, we were informed by county council that we couldn't have the meeting at all because it was election related. And one thing and another, us screaming loudly and many important people hearing us screaming loudly, we ended up being able to have the meeting. The sheriff came along and just gave us an update during our regular community partner part. And we talked about the ballot measures. Nobody could advocate, but they can't eat anyway because they're public employees. And so we had Juan Carlos Gonzalez talking about Metro. We had, I'm chewing and not thinking.
TVFNR and THPRD.
Right.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to CPO 3 here. Anybody from CPO 3 have something to throw into the mix? Well, seeing none, how about CPO 4M?
About 4K.
Well, okay, yeah, K comes before M. How about CPO 4K, King City?
Well, we had a steering committee meeting last night, and we're trying to get ourselves organized, hopefully for a June meeting to elect officers and address some other more administrative issues. And our speaker is still unknown, not done, but hopefully we will be able to have a meeting in June and then get back to regular order in September when we normally start in the fall.
Great. And so now CPO 4M, you got any roundtable update for us?
Yes, we're continuing to stay active. We have a wetlands restoration proposal that would be south of Washington Square, and Washington Square is going through a big update also. The city of Tigard has a charter change that they're going to be voting on this next month, and we're going to be learning more about that. We're looking for an apology from the city of Tigard because they had a public hearing technology failure over a year ago where there were over 100 CPO 4M members, but they could not testify. The city of Tigard is doing something to deal with the climate emergency. They have a climate action team coming up with suggestions and solutions. We're keeping our eyes on the proposed baseball stadium at the Red Tail Golf Course in progress and seeing what's going to happen on that. And right now it seems to be kind of stymied, although there's a lot of money behind it. And we of course continue to follow the enforcement order and the technical advisory committee. And then for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have a list of over 350 species of local birds and critters that we're trying to get so we can speak up about wildlife. Wildlife can't speak up for itself. We need to speak up for wildlife, particularly in this time going through this process, the Goal 5 update process. That's it.
Very good. I heard that the city of Portland owns Red Tail, and the Portland Golf Association was protesting vehemently about selling Red Tail. So there are a lot of moving parts there. So yep. CPO 4M, CPO 5-6, CPO 6, Ken.
Yeah. we're going to just have a little brief update here. A lot of you know that we've certainly indoctrinated some of our new members of our volunteer committee. We've got Caleb, who's going to be our vice chair, and we got a Lori and Lauren. They're going to be helping out with a lot of our community events. And we're going to hold our first hybrid meeting for a while down at the Aloha Library this next month. We don't have any guests lined up, but we are working with Fran on the significant natural resources, trying to get some areas identified and document wildlife corridors and things like that to try and help bolster her cause and some of all of our causes in our CPO for the wildlife and habitat areas in this particular area. So let's see, that's probably about it for us right now.
Okay, thank you very much. CPO 7.
Yes, CPO 7. We finally have a new chair and a vice chair and a secretary. And we've been meeting, well, since February with temporary officers, but they've officially been appointed and affirmed by the membership. This month, I don't remember what we did. This coming month, we're going to have Neighborhood Streets Program, the Sheriff's Office, and City of Beaverton come and talk about just traffic through neighborhoods. And in particular, there's the neighborhood that is between Nike and Highway 26, between Murray and 158. They see quite a bit of cut-through traffic for Nike employees, and they're trying to figure out how to cut down on that. But it's a really weird neighborhood in that it's split between two community plans, between two CPOs. Part of it's in City of Beaverton, and part of it is in urban and incorporated Washington County. But hopefully they can. What was that?
I said, whoa.
Yeah, a little bit crazy. And in June, we're hoping to have Washington County and Ride Connection come and attend our meeting. We have been told that there is a shuttle that is being considered for the fall of 2024 between Sunset Transit and PCC Rock Creek. And we've been told that a definite route has not been decided yet, and we're hoping that we'll be early enough in the process that we can make recommendations as to where that route can go. And we may want to work with CPO 1 with that as well, because the route would have to go through both CPOs.
We're like this.
Yeah, exactly. And we might not be able to agree as CPO members what the best route is, but we could talk about it. So that's it.
You got a comment, Virginia? Okay. CPO 7, CPO 8. That would be the new kids on the block. Linda or Fawn, anything to share with us?
I do. We have quite a bit to share, actually. As everybody here knows and understands, our land use issue, I'm sorry about the backlighting, but that's where I am. Our land use issue has to do with our farmland and protecting it. And we, as a CPO, chose to hold a forum, and we've been talking about this forum since the inception of reactivation. So we went ahead with all of our plans. We invited the city 5 separate times and any of their surrogates to come and present the yes on measure 34. I don't always forget the number, 327, I believe. So originally it was meant to be a debate. They finally refused to attend. Then we reached out again to the Yes campaign itself, and we have not heard back from them. The forum is meant to take place on Saturday. And just yesterday, we got notification from the county that we were not allowed to sponsor this forum. So I wrote back to the county and said, thank you very much, but we disagree with each of your points, and told them why, and that within their guidebook and resource book, they say to follow the guidelines of the League of Women Voters, which we did. And they said that that it was one-sided and all this stuff. We told them, no, that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to show both sides of the issue and let the voters of North Plains have an opportunity to hear from both sides. So that's where we are. The city, I mean, the county has told us not to hold a forum under the auspices of CPO 8, and we're pushing back. So that's it. I personally, and as the chair of CPO 8, we feel that our goal 1 mandate under Senate Bill 100 is to deal precisely with land use issues and shine a light on those issues when it's required. And that's where we are. So to be continued, I'll probably have more to tell you at the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. So I have been having, I have requested a clear statement on what is and is not allowed of CPO leaders. And I have partial understanding, but I hope in the next meeting to have as clear a statement about what is permissible in the CPO leader world as we got on the use of chat in Zoom. So it's kind of an open issue, and it's confusing to me and confusing to others. So Virginia, what do you got?
You were calling on me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just wondered if Linda could tell us what specific aspect of her meeting did the county council object to?
I would like to hold that conversation when we actually get a statement from them, because it's been, I'm not going to stop Linda from saying it, but we have a significant discussion to have. Linda, go ahead.
Well, to answer Virginia's question, I think they had 6 points. One of them was that we had not engaged CPO, we had not engaged the county, although we had told the county in our public meetings 3 separate times what we intended to do, and they only decided to raise the issue this week. That's number 1. Number 2 was they took issue with our venue. The city has foreclosed us on having any meetings within the city limits. They've closed every single avenue to us. So the county said, well, the venue that you've chosen is not ADA approved. And we said, yes, it is. I mean, you park in the lot, you walk in, there's no level up, there's no level down. It's completely accessible. And where we normally would have meetings, there are 7 stairs or 6x stairs to get into the building, and there's no ingress and egress any other place. So that's not ADA approved, yet the county goes ahead and rents it. So there's some very confusing issues here. And it doesn't pass the smell test as far as we're concerned, but we'd like them to clear it up.
Yes. Mary, what do you got?
I think Linda raises a question that we have been having in multiple CPOs, where it seems like OAICE has no idea. They're not following what our plans are within a CPO. And it seems to be once the agenda is submitted, then all of a sudden they realize, oh, well, we need to look at this and this isn't appropriate. but I know it's happened in CPO 7. I know it happened in CPO 1, and it sounds like it's happened in CPO 8 as well within the current year. And I'm wondering how as CCI can we ensure that we don't have this happening on a continuous basis.
Well, I agree. And that's why we need to have a clear, unequivocal statement on the details. Because it's no fun to get something going and then not be able to carry through. Linda, what do you have?
I agree. Thank you very much for that comment. These seem to come to us at the 11th hour, and it's impossible to do anything about it. I mean, they told us we couldn't sponsor this forum, and yet in their own guidelines, it tells us we can certainly sponsor these kind of forums. And the only restriction, and we all agree with it, is that we don't take a public position one way or the other. We allow those who are going to be affected have access to both sides of an issue and then decide for themselves. And so I see CPO 8 in this particular sense as a facilitator to allow the voting public in North Plains to have access to both sides of the issue. And yet one side of the issue refuses to participate. And then the county comes in and says, well, you can't do it.
We are grappling with a sort of unexpected set of changes here. So I'm again hoping that the clear, unequivocal statement will clear this up. Gretchen?
Hi, Linda. I'm so sorry you're going through this. CPO 4K had this happen a month ago with 2 hours notice before our meeting was supposed to happen. So I'm so sorry you're going through it. You're not alone. And as Bruce said, this is a major issue, and we may end up having a set to with county council over this because OEICE is totally, and I'm going to be politically incorrect, it's totally incompetent in handling this kind of stuff.
I don't think that OAICE is necessarily the incompetency. I think that since county council is looking at the founding documents, that they are discovering things and communicating directions to OAICE in a way that is not crystal clear. So, Mary, what do you got?
I see it as more of a problem that nobody's paying attention to what we're doing until the 11th hour. And I think that's the crux to the problem. And as soon as we start having these conversations about, well, wouldn't it be good if we had this on our agenda, if we had more guidance? Well, if we had more guidance, crystal clear rules, but also if they want to snuff stuff out, they need to be paying more attention to what our plans are.
Well, and I know from my own personal actions, I am not always getting the agendas to OAICE with enough lead time to make that checkout process smooth. And so in order to do this, we're going to have to, ACA has set some deadlines for submitting agendas, and we're going to have to work hard to meet those.
But the conversations need to happen before the agenda is sent out. And at that point, it's OAICE needs to have a better sense of tracking what our plans are. And there is no tracking that's going on.
Duly noted. Okay, Linda.
Well, there's also, it's not only a matter of tracking. I want to get down to a fundamental here, and that is, what does the county view and what do CPOs view as the definition of participation? we're a participating organization. Does that mean that we have to take instructions from the county? Or does that mean that we're allowed to give our input to the county? Or because it seems to me that we often are dictated to at a point in our procedures that we are told what to do and what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do. But it's at a time when it's just too late. We've
Yeah.
already done it.
Yeah. Virginia is so cute. I think that it's safe to say that this is a subject that will be continued to future meetings. So thank you. CPO 8, 9, 10. Anybody from CPO 10 got something to say? 11. I don't see anybody from CPO 12, C or F, the Western CPOs. Jim, what do you got?
As usual, Jim.
Does Jim know he's muted?
I don't know.
Unmute yourself, Jim.
God. Why are you-
Anything else? Anybody else
Okay,
want to talk
okay.
about?
So what I wanted to bring up are two things, two different other CPOs, CPO 14 and CPO 4B. I've got a couple of dozen emails from some people who want to appeal a decision by the city of Tigard for some property, but CPO 4B doesn't exist to help them through it. So it's just one of those gaps. And so maybe this redoing the boundaries, merging 4K and 4B or 4B and 4M might make some sense. The other is my friend Ayla, who I believe is still on here. She tells me that CPO 14 in Banks is trying to reactivate also. So I think that's worthwhile news, and I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Ayla, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I just want to say thank you. It's great to be back in the CPO world. I left it in the 1980s. And I will say that back then CPOs were just that. We were citizens participating and informing the county. It was not the county giving us a narrative. So I'm Ayla Hoffler. I'm standing in as chairperson till we have our official elections in May. I think Marcia Kirk, my vice chair, is here listening, and I'm so fortunate to have her because she's also city council in Banks and well informed on many levels of land use and transportation. So we have, and also Burchin is back in our CPO, and he's a historical CPO active person and historian of the area. So we have a great group. We have big UGB issues going on. We're having two big developments, adding over 1,100 homes and banks in the next foreseeable 5 to 10 years. We have water issues, transportation issues. Our CPO is being resurrected because we will be looking at these things, and we will not
It's
be
too late for
unlike.
me to get a martini.
I'm sorry.
Never
I'm
mind.
Oh, martinis. Yeah, we'll be throwing back some beers at ADA access establishments and and trying to keep the peace. And hopefully we're being very proactive, and we look forward to having help from all of you to guide us through the things we're going to be dealing with. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Gretchen and Mary have your hands up. We're kind of running here up to the end. Are they germane to the subjects discussed so far? Gretchen?
Yes, I have a quick question for Ayla.
Yes.
It is pronounced Ayla?
Ayla, yep, lazy A.
Okay. Ayla, 4K which is the King City area, which is another small area, small town. Could you send me a copy of your bylaws for your CPO? Because we're having an issue potentially relating to planning commissioners in King City. King City is in the whole CPO, includes the whole city, of whether they can serve as officers in the CPO. So I would really appreciate you sending me a copy of your bylaws.
Yes, our bylaws unfortunately are controlling us from way back in the 90s because we haven't had officials yet to make our bylaws and update them.
Well,
So
if you could send me those copies, I would
22.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, our stuff is from 1990, so
Okay,
we don't
well,
have
ours are
anything
about
new.
that old too.
Right. I know CPO 8 just redid theirs and it was very nice. And I would look
Maybe
forward
they could
to,
send me a copy of theirs as well.
yeah, they did a really great job. And
And
so
my
I would,
email, I'm a CCI member. My email's out there.
Oh,
great.
If you have a question, Bruce can give it to you.
yes. Mary,
We'll send you our CPO 8 bylaws.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I would like to see us have a meeting in person, please, so we all could meet each other for one time.
oh,
So I was going to suggest that poor Paul has been waiting and waiting to do his presentation.
All right, go Paul.
And I will happily host an in-person meeting.
oh,
And unfortunately, some of us have issues that make it difficult for us to go to night meetings. So,
Well, let's have it in the daytime.
I'm so retired, I can do it in the daytime.
So can we let Paul do his presentation so we can get the meeting over with, please?
Please.
take it away, Paul.
I don't really have anything to contribute other
Okay,
than,
well then that's that.
all I can do is stir the pot.
All right. Fran, you got your hand up.
Yeah, Tree Keepers has had some real positive steps forward this past month. And so what I'm going to do is just add it to the minutes, if that's okay.
Please.
There are some things that we're doing that apply to all the CPOs, and I think we could use your feedback.
And so we are, ACA has requested that we have all of our review comments on the minutes done by the 1st of the month following the CCI meeting. So on May 1 or 2, she's requested that all minute review be done. And Mary and I have been reviewing them and collating comments, and Virginia chimes in. So if you're concerned about the minutes somewhere, let us know. There we go. And I will remind you that there's free food and access to elected officials and staff people at the CPO appreciation Fandango on, is that the right word? The all annual volunteer celebration on Thursday, April 25th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Wingspan Event Center.
I hope we don't have to dress up as Spanish dancers.
I would pay money to see you dress up as a Spanish dancer.
Is that an approved location?
Dang.
How much?
So I
So
would.
Bruce, can we talk about the steering committee meeting tomorrow? It says
Yes.
in minutes that it's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I believe it's at 11 a.m.
That's
So how do we get it corrected in the agenda that goes out? Because I think it consistently is wrong. And it may
So
be
is it
wrong on
the-
the county website as well.
Yeah,
So
that's one of
is-
those things that we need to resolve. Is it the thing I send out that says it's at 10, or is that the?
I think it may be on the county website.
So
But I don't
see
know for sure.
an announcement for the steering committee come from community engagement.
Well, it's on the
it's on their
agenda.
website.
that-
Oh,
No,
is
it's on the agenda that came
Okay.
out.
Well,
So-
then we need to fix that. We need to get everybody on the same page.
Or the
And
clock.
the important thing is everybody that wants to attend the steering committee meeting tomorrow, show up at 11 because Bruce will not be there at 10.
Well, we could talk about Bruce behind his back.
Would you please? I would love to. I'll open the meeting and then disappear and log on as somebody else and see what you have to say. Okay. With that,
What avatar are you going to use, Bruce?
the awesome power, it's
Does Ayla still need to be called on, or did she just forget to put her hand down?
hasn't put her hand down unless you have something to add. I think it's just a remnant. So I would
Can I
be
move? Can I
happy-
move that we amend or that we adjourn the meeting? Can I do that?
Yes, you can.
I second.
I have the chat saved. Class dismissed, kids.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.